Well, you brought up the bowl game. Why don't we go there before we hit the coaching staff with the bowl game, Gator Bowl, Kentucky. The Gator Bowl used to be a big deal. I guess a lot of these bowl games used to be a big deal. I still love the bowl games. I still tune into as many as I can possibly get a hold of. But 7-5 Kentucky. I can't imagine Clemson fans are going to get too ramped up for this one.
Not the sexiest of matchups, you know. I mean, it looked for a while there like Clemson was going to end up out in San Diego at the Holiday Bowl. Then Florida State gets left out. Everybody's knocked down a peg. And from my understanding, figuring out the bowls, the ACC yesterday, it was just a big old mess, man. It took forever for them to announce the ACC bowl slots, man. It was late afternoon yesterday before we found out for sure. And as someone that is traveling to this game, I can't say that I'm disappointed that I'm going to Jacksonville as opposed to having to fly out on Christmas Day to go to San Diego. I am very happy with that. I don't care who they're playing. But yeah, it's not the sexiest of matchups. USC's in the Holiday Bowl. That's who you'd have played if you went out there. But as we saw today, Caleb Williams is not playing, so that takes some of the luster off of that matchup if it would have happened. I think Clemson needs a win here. You know, I've seen some people saying they need to treat this like, you know, an extra spring practice, and I just fully disagree with that. To me, if you go into this bowl game and lay an egg, it kind of feels like the November where you bounce back, go 4-0, get some big wins over Notre Dame, North Carolina, go to South Carolina, win. If you go lay an egg against Kentucky in the bowl game, maybe it's going to feel like that was all for naught, and you just kind of killed all your momentum. You build over the end of the season, and with Dabo making these coaching changes, man, it just feels like there's a lot of positive momentum around this program right now. I don't think they could afford to go down there and slow this momentum down at all. I think you need to go down there and win this game. I don't care who it's against.
And this may not seem like a point that really matters in the moment, but I think it does long term for types like us, the media types and the fans and everything, because rankings used to be a big deal. We used to make a big deal out of rankings. Now, after the first four, a lot of people don't care about rankings. I get that. Bowl games, the same thing. But what's some of the first stats that I hear out of people's mouths or see on social media when they're talking about comparing this program and that program? And if you finish number 22 in the country or whatever it is versus losing that bowl game and finishing unranked, when all the stats get compiled and people are throwing out this program and that program, if you don't finish ranked, and for Clemson, that this is going to be however many years in a row to finish ranked 12 or 13, well, you wouldn't have that. And again, Dabo's bowl record, just like coaches, their bowl records get thrown back and forth all the time. So it's just going to be another, is his bowl record better or is bowl record worse? Again, more for long-term legacy discussions, but that's what people argue about.
Yeah, I agree. Clemson's already, you know, they can't extend their, you know, streak of 10 win seasons. You can't do it. That's off the table. But you can extend that streak of how many consecutive seasons you finish ranked. And I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I think they've got a fairly long one going on. Seasons finished ranked inside the top 25. If you lose this game, you're probably out of those rankings. You know, so I think that's something else to play for. I get it, man. A lot of people look at bowl games as exhibitions, glorified exhibition, especially now with all the opt-outs. I just feel a little bit differently about this one for Clemson, man. It just feels like a win would go a lot further towards spinning this program in a positive light as you head into the offseason, as opposed to what a loss would do, man. It would kind of take some of the luster off what you did in November.
That 2010, which was obviously Dabo's first season at 6-7, that was the last time they did not finish ranked in the final top 25 AP poll. So there you go. And all that stuff gets added up again. You see all these lists, these compilations. Well, they finished ranked this many times and they finished in the top. All of that goes on all the time. All right, now let's go back to last week and a big addition on both sides of the ball with the coaching staff.
Yeah, Dabo made some changes to his staff last week. He announced that offensive line coach Thomas Austin would not return, defensive ends coach Lemansky Hall would not return, and then actually today, Monday, they officially announced the replacements. Matt Luke's going to coach the offensive line, Chris Rump, the defensive ends. And Rump actually has coached at Clemson before, back when Dabo first started out. I can't remember exactly how long he was there off the top of my head, but he played at South Carolina, coached at Clemson. So he's familiar with the program. If you combine them together, they've both got a bunch of NFL experience, coached a lot of talented guys. I think both are home run hires. Matt Luke's actually been away from coaching for a couple of years now. Last time we saw him, he was coaching the offensive line at Georgia, kind of stepped away to be with his family. And I think that, deciding to get back into it and deciding Clemson is that spot, I think that's a good fit. Dabo's big on families, big on making sure you take the time out and do that stuff. It's not work, work, work all the time. So I think that's a good fit. And I talked about those struggles with the offensive line recruiting earlier. I think this helps you there too. And I think it's a big part of the reason why this change was made. The struggles Austin had this cycle with recruiting. I don't think anybody's going to go out and work harder than Matt Luke will on the recruiting trail. And it's something, to me, that's an area that Clemson still needs. That's a hurdle they still need to cross to get. They don't have a track record of putting all these offensive linemen into the league. They've never had a coach there since Dabo's been the head coach that has this long glorified track record of putting guys into the league. Now they've got a guy in place who has put some talent into the NFL. And that's something they can point to, something that can't be used against them the way it was before. So, I just think these are home run hires. And going back to Rump, defensive end used to be a spot where kids used to line up wanting to come play for Clemson and play in that Clemson defense at defensive end. And that's not been the case so much here recently. I know they got TJ Parker and the 2023 class, but they got AJ Hoffler and then David Ajabi, but they're more accustomed to bringing in guys like KJ Henry, Miles Murphy, Xavier Thomas, and that's kind of fallen off. They got two guys in the 2024 class right now, Darian Mayo, who took a big jump from his junior year to senior season, probably rated a lot higher now than I probably thought he would be at this point, man. But he's got a very high ceiling. And Adam Kasaya from Florida, who's a 3-star guy, who's probably a developmental guy. I mean, it's not no knocks on those guys, but it's just not the same talent level that Clemson was recruiting at 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Seeing the name Matt Luke makes me feel old because he was playing at Ole Miss when I was covering Ole Miss, Alabama, and Mississippi State when I was just out of college down there with old WCBI in Mississippi. And then Matt Luke was the guy that the Ole Miss football program turned to after the Hugh Freeze scandal to kind of solidify the program and pull everyone together and get them through that whole mess. So, yeah, he's always seemed like a really good guy. And again, if you're recruiting at Georgia and working with that offensive line, that's where Clemson would love to be again here real soon up front on offense.
Absolutely. That offensive line struggled mightily this year. Make no mistake. I mean, it's not just recruiting. That line struggled. And, nothing against Thomas Austin. I'm just not sure the system he grew up playing in and the system he's been coaching, I'm not sure how much that meshes with what Garrett Riley wants to do on offense. Riley wants to run those counters and those traps. And, you see those offensive linemen getting out trying to pull, and they just look slow. They just weren't very good at it. They had to simplify it, starting with the Notre Dame game. They went away from that a lot, went back to more zone block stuff. And I don't think you want to have to simplify your stuff. You don't want to handcuff your offensive coordinator in that way. You need a guy that can coach to the scheme that your offensive coordinator wants to run. And I think that's what Dabo Swinney's went out and done. It's got somebody that can do that.
Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com. Jason, you definitely showed up for us this week with a lot of great information. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a busy week, man. I always appreciate it.